The blind man's daughter. Those words are as precious as clearest green jade, Yeongdu. Harmony declared when her grandson had ceased reciting the 5 laws of behavior. But most precious of all are those that tell of the duty of a child to his parents. Obedience in all things, respect for the aged, those are the most important and the ones which bring great rewards. Have I ever told you the story of Shung, the dutiful daughter of Sim, the blind beggar? Well, it happened 500 years ago, perhaps even more. In a certain village, there lived this good girl whose name was Sim Jung. Her mother was dead and her father was growing blind. Shung was the only one treasure of that poor man. Her face was smooth and white, like a piece of ivory carving. Her brows had the curves of a butterfly's wings, and her hair shone like the lacquer on the shining black table in the ancestor's house. In all her life, no illness had ever befallen Shung. Not even the great spirit of smallpox had been able to harm her. Shung was as good as kind as she was fair and wise. She wasted no grain of rice nor any drop of kimchi. She guided her father's faltering steps, but with his blindness the poor man could no longer walk. Their possessions had to be sold, one after another, to keep them alive. When the girl was grown up, it was no longer proper that she go out in the street with her old father. The blind man crept off alone to beg for a few pieces of cash from the kind passers-by. One day he stumbled into a ditch. While he was trying to climb out of it, a firm hand lifted him up, and the voice spoke to him. "Give me 300 bags of rice for the temple, old man, and in time you shall have your eyes once again." Sim marveled at those words. When he found that the speaker was a priest from the temple on the mountain nearby, he believed the man's promise and hope filled his heart. But when he repeated it to his daughter, sadness swallowed with hope. I go, he wailed. "There is no way for beggars like us to obtain so much rice." But in a dream that night, the dead mother of Chung told the girl of a way by which she might get the rice to give her father his sight again. The next morning, the good daughter disguised herself in a big hat and the long, coarse grey gown of a person in mourning for the dead. She covered her nose and her mouth with the thin white cloth shield a mourner always carries before his face. So hidden, she made her way to the courtyard of a certain rich merchant. This man owned many boats which carried cargoes of rice to faraway China, but of late the river dragon had barred his way by throwing the water up in dangerous waves. The toll for safe passage which the dragon demanded was a beautiful girl. The merchant had offered no less than 300 bags of rice to that one who would offer himself for the sacrifice. The merchant was sorrowful when he heard Chung's sad story. "So dutiful a daughter," he said, "does not deserve to die." But there was no other way for her to get the rice, so the bargain was made. Chung's heart was glad when she watched the long line of horses carrying the bags of rice to the priest's temple up in the hills. But her heart was sad when the priest told her it might take many years for her father to see again. The girl bowed before the tomb of her mother and prayed her to send heavenly spirits to take care of the old man until he could be cured. She also gave the blind man over into the care of her good neighbors. Then she set forth to keep her part of the bargain she had made with the merchant. When she was dressed for her journey through the dragon's watery realm, Chung shone brighter than the sun in the eastern heavens. Clad in a bride's gown of green and with jewels and bright ribbons in her wedding headdress, she rode at the head of the merchant's procession of rice boats. Soon they came to the place in the river where the dragon barred the way with the lashings of his great tail. To save this poor girl, the merchant offered to give many bags of his rice to the river spirit. All on the boats wept, for their hearts were touched at her great love for her old blind father. They too made prayers, but the river dragon would not be satisfied by any substitute for Chung. So the girl bowed to heaven and jumped up the side of the boat. "Straightway, my son, the angry waters grew as calm as those of our garden pool. The boats passed safely across them and went on their way to the flowery kingdom of China. Whether many fish drew her in a shell, or whether she was carried along by the dragon servants of the Sea King, Chung never knew. She found herself floating between waving undersea plants amid bright-colored fish. She caught glimpses of pearls as big as your fist and of walls of black marble. Then she was led into the palace of the Sea King himself. The bewildered girl bowed before the jade river dragon and said, "Honorable sir, I am the only daughter of the blind beggar Sim. I am not worthy to come before one so exalted as you." But the Sea King replied, "The light of the stars finds its way down to our undersea kingdom, and a message about you has come to us from Hananim, the Emperor of heaven and earth. You will be well rewarded for your goodness to your blind father." Sea maidens dressed Chung in fine robes. They spread out before her soft sleeping mats, and they gave her rich food. In this life of comfort and ease, the girl grew more beautiful than ever before. One day her attendants led Chung to a giant lotus blossom that lay on the river bottom. It was so large that they could hide her away within its fragrant heart. The Sea King bade her farewell, and the girl felt herself rising up through the water. Soon, to her amazement, she saw the lotus flower was floating upon the river, close to the boat of her friend, the rice merchant. Never in heaven or on earth was there such a lotus flower as this. The boatman said to the merchant, "It must go to the king." They were richly paid for it, and the king treasured none of his princely possessions so much as this rare giant blossom. He went daily to see it in the special garden pool on which he set it to float. Only at night did Chung come out of her hiding place in the giant flower. Somehow its perfume served her as food, and the dew on its petals quenched her thirst. In the moonlight one evening, the king came upon the girl as she walked on the bank of the crystal pool. Modestly she turned to hide herself from his sight, but her lotus blossom shelter had vanished. The king was afraid at first she might be a spirit, but her beauty delighted him. The wise men who studied the heavens declared that on the day the lotus flower was brought home to him by the boatman, a bright new star had appeared overhead in the sky. With this good omen to reassure him, the king made Chung his wife. "What became of the blind beggar, her father?" asked Tokecha, who had come quietly into the room. "That is the very best part of the tale, blessed girl," the Korean grandmother answered. Now Chung was happy, as who would not be if she were a queen. But there were times when her heart was also sad. She thought often of her poor father, whose eyes were no doubt still closed to the world about him. One day her husband, the king, came upon her weeping as she sat in the garden. "I go, great and excellent one," Chung said to the king when he asked why she wept. "It is a dream I have had about a blind man. His plight touches my heart. I should like to do something for all the blind in your kingdom. I should like to give them a fine feast." 1 day, 2 days, and 3 days, the blind beggars of the land came to eat rice and kimchi in the king's courtyard. Peering at them through curtains, Queen Chung had hoped each one might prove to be her father. But the end of the feast came without Sim's appearing. The servants were just turning away a latecomer when the queen recognized him through his tatters. She gave a loud cry, "Abuji! Abuji! It is my dear father!" as she ordered the servants to be paddled for handling him so roughly. They dressed Sim, the blind beggar, in new clothing and brought him into the queen's chamber. "What wonder is this?" said the blind man when he heard his dear daughter's voice. "Do apricots bloom in the snow? Do horses have horns? Do the dead come to life? How can I be sure you are truly Chung unless I can see?" The old man rubbed his dim eyes, and suddenly, as the temple priest had foretold, his sight returned. When the king heard the tale, he heaped honors upon the father of his beloved queen. He gave him a fine house. He appointed him to a high position at court. He even found him a wife to look after his food and his clothes in his old age. Then was Queen Chung happy all the day long. Then indeed was fulfilled the Sea King's promise of a heavenly reward to this dutiful daughter of the blind beggar Sim,